What I'm finding, though, more interesting, and it's being used right now, some strange techniques that you pointed out to me that we're seeing, particularly in the US election. Billionaire Michael Bloomberg, well, he's running for the Democrat nomination. He's so far spent $500 million, mostly of his own money. How about that? Including spending on the biggest social media campaign probably in politics we've seen. I don't know. I stand to be corrected. Including buying influencers to spread his word. The results are bizarre. I want to show you first, and can you explain to me this post that took off? His team created it, of spot the meatball that looks like Mike. Can you explain to me? Well, obviously
it's the one in the foreground.
Well, all of them look a bit like Mike Bloomberg, but yes, the one in the foreground, I guess. Can you explain to me how that works?
So Bloomberg has just spent, like you say, $500 million on social media advertising. We've been having so much fun on the Young IPA podcast talking about these.
Was that a plug you just did?
Yeah, it's very subtle. The very keen-eyed viewer might have heard it. But this one here is just... I mean, his whole campaign is probably going to finally put to bed the idea that all publicity is good publicity, because I reckon by the end of it, he will have just spent $500 million teaching an entire new generation of young Americans how much of a laughingstock.
So so they didn't count the backlash, you're saying, because this stuff is getting mocked. But what would be the initial thought that to do that, people will at least be talking about his name?
Yeah, so that's the thing.
Like,
at what point is just people talking about your name any good? I mean, if the best your campaign can come up with on philosophical statements of why you should be president is which meatball you look like.
No, I think you're being unfair, because I want to point to another meat-based product in his advertising. Can you then, this might be better, right? This might answer all our concerns. Can you explain this billboard, also from the Bloomberg campaign? Donald Trump eats burnt steak. Mike Bloomberg likes his medium rare.
I don't see how Trump comes back from that. I think that's the end of his presidency. No, that's another one where...
Does he eat burnt steak? I don't even know.
I don't even know what burnt steak
into
is.
The Trump?
Like, you can have burnt steak and still eat it medium rare. Like, I don't know if burnt
in the outside, rare in the meat.
That's what I'm thinking. I don't think it rules anything out.
No, we're being caught into this, sucked into this vortex. Here we are discussing this seriously.
I'm not being sucked into his vortex. He's still a laughingstock, and the laughingstock he shall remain.
So you reckon that's backfiring on social media?
I saw it when it got tweeted out. I read through the replies. It was a very enjoyable way to spend half an hour reading through people going, what on earth is this?
Yeah, but some genius has obviously come to him and say, this is how you spend your money these days.
Yeah, I think he's genius in the sense that he's figured out a way to keep Bloomberg employing him for an exorbitant fee. I think that's the true genius of it all.
All right, well, again, maybe we're just picking on really bad examples. Here's the last one, another one from the Bloomberg campaign. It says, the punchline is, it's just a little dialogue with someone or other, allegedly. And it ends with the dialogue, I put Lamborghini doors on the Escalade, which is a SUV. Lamborghini doors on the Escalade. Still not getting any better for you? Still not feeling it?
I think we're all richer for hearing you read that out. So this one in particular was early on in the Bloomberg campaign, where the strategy was to just give a boatload of money to already popular influencers, and it was just free will. Do whatever you want. So the meme that became it was them screenshotting Bloomberg reaching out to them and then just playing with what Bloomberg replies. So this is like Bloomberg had no say over this one. It was just fully in the hands of the people he was.
Social media fail.
Exactly.
You reckon?
Absolutely.
Okay. Here is something I don't think is a fail, and it's a concern I have. Algorithms. Don't worry, this is not a maths lesson. To show you what I mean, before coming on the show, just a couple of hours ago, I typed in Donald Trump into the Google machine. That's it, Donald Trump. In news, and not by relevance, where they collect the most important stories they think most relevant. Boom, and of the results, were 6 stories in the first cluster, at least 5 of them negative about Donald Trump, and not one that was positive. 5 are from fiercely anti-Trump media outlets like the New York Times, CNN, and not a single one from a conservative media site. How do you explain that?
See, this whole idea of how online censorship in Silicon Valley is like pushing people towards left-wing things, I think is a huge issue. I'm not as sold on the Google search result algorithms as I am on shadow banning. Just Google search algorithms, we don't know what the level playing field is and how much money New York Times is spending as opposed to the Wall Street Journal.
Companies are paying to bump up the
Exactly.
results.
So
once it's a skewed result.
Once I know that they're on equal measures on that, then it's going to be a bit more convincing. But to talk about shadow banning and Silicon Valley's influence over who gets to say what on social media, now that is a huge issue. And it's one of those ones, and it sort of reflects on the search results as well, where you have to wonder if the solutions offered are worse than the problem.
So shadow banning is when Google or Facebook or Twitter, they get a complaint about a particular site. Heavens to Betsy, 9 times out of 10 it's a conservative one, and 9 times out of 10 it's a conservative that gets kicked off while they try to, hey, wait a minute,
that's real banning. Shadow banning
Tim Blair got banned.
Yeah, so that's real banning, which is when someone gets removed from Twitter or Facebook. But the shadow banning, which is more sinister and hard to prove, is when you don't turn up in search results for your own name, or you don't, people who followed you somehow unfollow you despite them not being able to do that. And that's the kind of stuff where if the government does pass laws, then is the government just saying what can and cannot be said on social media, which is a bit, we already have 18C. I don't know if we need to give the government more license of what people can and can't say online.
Well, I think the Google research results and the relevance, that should come with a declaration by Google. These rankings were paid for, so people know that they're being influenced. By the way, just to show that that wasn't a rare off-chance coincidence about the Donald Trump. Also typed in Scott Morrison in Google, and the first relevance clutch of stories. The top 5 results were all left-wing outlets, including the very anti-Morrison Guardian and the Saturday paper. And the only research result for a news organisation from the centre-right is the very last one, The Australian. And now this news story wasn't actually particularly bad for Morrison, since it was talking about him doing something green, but there is a trend here. James Bolt, thank you so much indeed for your time.
No worries.